I saw those big highs and those big lows in my clients' bookkeeping come winter time. They're really struggling with cash flow. Them struggling with cash flow meant that I was struggling with cash flow because essentially they couldn't afford to pay me when there was no money there. So my solution to all of that was to go and look for a solution to their cash flow problems. I did tweaks and changes in my business to ensure that that didn't continue to happen to me. Yeah, but the main reason behind it was to help my clients out.
Thank you, Tracy, for joining us today on the Profit First podcast, Australia and New Zealand. You are one of our members who have been with us for how long now?
Oh, that's putting me on the spot. 4 years certified.
And a little bit before that while you were doing your certification as well.
Might be 5 years certified. In October, November 2019, I joined.
There we go. So
Yeah.
5.5 years.
Yeah, so it must be 5 years certified. March, it was when COVID hit. So March 2020 was when I got certified.
And I think that's probably a good example of how you can't rattle off that number straight off the top of your head simply because it hopefully is something that has been enjoyable and not something that has not been enjoyable. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and whereabouts you're based.
So I'm Tracy from Nourish Your Numbers. I'm based in rural South Australia and I help regional and rural business owners balance out their cash flow and bring clarity to their finances.
Awesome. Thank you. And you work with your clients all virtually, or you have some local clients as well?
I had a handful of local clients. The bulk of my clients are virtual.
And I think that's something, even in this virtual world, sometimes clients do forget that they can actually work with somebody anywhere in Australia, or for our New Zealand listeners there as well. So it's always a good reminder there. So tell us a little bit about what was going on in your business before you decided to join Profit First, and what was working or not working that then prompted you to have a look for another solution.
Yeah, so I actually kind of didn't join Profit First for my business. That was an added bonus. Being rural and before the cloud was kind of a big thing. I'd listen to Mike's Grow Your Accounting Practice podcast when I'd be traveling out to visit farmers on their farm. At the same time, because the income in this area is seasonal, so it's either agricultural, farming, crayfishing, businesses are tourist related. So over summer, we have a big influx of people. Over winter, it is freezing cold and everybody wants to go somewhere where it's warm. So I saw those big highs and those big lows in my clients' bookkeeping come winter time. They're really struggling with cash flow. Them struggling with cash flow meant that I was struggling with cash flow because essentially they couldn't afford to pay me when there was no money there. So my solution to all of that was to go and look for a solution to their cash flow problems. I did tweaks and changes in my business to ensure that that didn't continue to happen to me. Yeah, but the main reason behind it was to help my clients out.
And I think that's such an important point, because so often we can think that we can't make a difference, and, your business was okay. You could manage the ups and downs. What could you do to make a difference? Yet you still chose to make your tiny dent in the world around you and got uncomfortable a little bit and searched out Profit First. And so tell us about that experience when you first joined. What was that like? How long had you studied or trained previously? Or had there been a gap and then you jumped into Profit First, which those listening to the podcast will know I will talk about the certification process all the time. What was that like for you?
It was an extended thing for me. So I think I'd done a webinar with another bookkeeping group where we ran through the instant assessment together. And I come out of that going, oh, I've got to make some changes. I did reach out to the CEO of Profit First, probably 6 months, at least 6 months before I joined. And we had a good chat. And she essentially said to me, "Come back when you're ready." So the reason she said that to me was my mindset. So I couldn't work out how. If my clients were struggling with cash flow, how was this going to make it better? So it wasn't until after like I self-implemented it into my business and worked out myself that it worked kind of without even worrying about the how because it worked. Yeah, so it wasn't until then when I had another call with her and signed up.
Awesome. And I think your story is very similar to many of our members as well. And mine also, when I first joined a number of years ago, like, great idea, love it, have implemented it myself. And then we kind of wait for a little bit until we realize that now's the time. So I think that's very normal and something that if anyone who is listening has thought about becoming a member previously and is on the fence about it, just know that you're not alone. Many of us have had that same experience. And if we think about some of the clients that you've been able to help over these years, is there one or two that stand out the most? And it could be for whatever reason, who have potentially had that mindset that this is not going to work. It won't work for us. We're different because, and then you've been able to work with them and turn that around for them, or with them, I should say.
Yeah, so one particular client comes to mind, and they didn't want to implement Profit First at all, but their partner wanted to implement Profit First. We were together for quite a long time just on easing them into it so that it wasn't a big, huge change and they didn't get that stress or that overwhelm to the changes in their finances. They are now my biggest advocate for Profit First. They've said to me, oh, we've, told other people around town that they really need to implement Profit First. And so the other really big change that they did was they also implemented it by themselves into their personal finances. And whereas before they might have been like living off of the credit card, spending more than they actually needed. Now they've bought themselves a brand new caravan. They're saving for an overseas holiday. Everything just feels abundant to them.
And it's such an important point that Profit First is so much more than opening a bunch of bank accounts.
Yeah.
The bank accounts are critical and they absolutely serve a purpose, but it's so much more than just that. And like you mentioned, implementing a similar framework in their personal situation then makes the business so much easier to run because we're not then drawing every last cent out of the business because our personal expenses are out of control, and we see that all of the time.
Yeah. And a big thing around that, which you probably see as well, Katie, is having Profit First implemented into their business so they knew exactly how much they could take out of the business each week for their owner's pay, and having that set amount and not just dipping in when they felt like it made a huge difference to both their business and to their personal life.
And we know that when clients dip in a little bit here and a little bit there, it accumulates to a much larger total than what they realize, and quite often then leads to a surprise tax bill that then has a flow-on effect and so on. So it's so nice to hear that even though you only had one on board to start with, that again, knowing and understanding your clients and taking it step by step and a little bit slower, that you could then get those results. And I think that's something that's really important for everyone to understand. There isn't just one set way to implement Profit First. There is the framework and then yourself as a certified profit first professional, knows and understands what the client actually needs and what their goals are to be able to then implement it at the pace that is best for them and in the order in which is best for them. As you say, they're getting some great results. So that is amazing to hear. I'm sure they're super excited about that. And then what about for yourself in your business with being able to plan forward with profit first and grow the business or do things that you potentially would not have thought you could have done without profit first?
Absolutely. So instead of, I don't get up anymore and go, oh, I've got to go to work, or it's my business, so it's not technically work, I suppose. But instead of like having those Monday blues every day, now I get up and I'm enthusiastic to get to work. I've changed my business around so that it works for me. So I'm not strictly tied to my desk from 9 to 5. I've created my schedule and adjusted things to how I like to work. And implementing profit first allowed me to do that because I could see if I needed to be at the desk from 9 to 5 or if I had the capacity there to just live an abundant life however I wanted. So I've had some great financial wins or dreams that I didn't even know were dreams wins. So as you know, Katie, like 12 months ago now, we went over to Italy. I'd never even considered traveling out of Australia. I'd always told myself that, I want to see Australia first because we do have a beautiful country and there's so much to see here. But I'd been telling myself the story that I just wanted to travel around Australia first. And yeah, having Profit First implemented meant that last May I got to spend 3 weeks over in Italy.
And that was amazing, even just to watch that journey with you going from thinking that was never possible.
Yeah.
Oh,
It wasn't
actually,
even it wasn't possible. It just didn't come into it wasn't a consideration. Yeah. And if I had thought about it, I would have gone, oh no, like that isn't possible. But I hadn't even thought about it.
yeah. And I think that's one of the things that there's so many parts to implementing profit first that when you do the initial setup and implementation with a client, that they can't even fathom the potential changes that will come their way from implementing profit first. Like it's just like, oh, it's just a cash flow system, or it's just this, it's just the bank accounts. But in actual fact, it's so much more than that. And if it's not travel that people want to do, that, it doesn't necessarily have to be travel. It can be, as you say, with your client, the caravan or investment properties or working less hours to spend time with family and so on. And I think that's one of the things I love so much about it is that as the business owner, we get to build our business to work for us and whatever that looks like. And Profit First is that tool that can help us, show us areas that we thought were not possible at all. So that's always super exciting for us all. And if you had to think about what your business would look like if you hadn't come across Profit First, what do you think that could have been? And maybe not even just the business, but you personally as well.
There's two scenarios and it is kind of entwined personally. So the first scenario is that I gave up business and I just went and worked for somebody because being a business owner, it's more than just doing the work. There's so many other things that you've got to think about and so many other pressures on you. So at times I certainly did feel like packing it all in and becoming an employee of somebody and just not having to take on those worries. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario is I would have just continued to do things hard. And yeah, I think hard is the word. Just there would have been enjoyable moments in there, but every day would have been hard. There would have been essentially the constant stress and the worry about paying bills, I don't know, paying subscriptions. It just would have been hard.
And I think, we're not saying that is the magic wand that will make everybody's business perfect and 100% amazing every single minute of every day, but it certainly goes a long way to making it a lot more fun and a lot more abundant for yourself, as you say, and for your clients than if we don't manage our cash properly. So if clients or potential clients want to reach out to you, Tracy, what is the best way for them to be in your world?
The best way for them to be in my world is to pop onto my website. If they just Google up Nourish Your Numbers, website, Facebook, or Instagram.
And on your website, they can register for your, I always call it a newsletter, and it's not called a newsletter, and I never remember this.
My weekly share.
Your weekly share. And I will say that Tracy's weekly share is awesome, and I read it every week. So please, bare minimum, go to her website, pop in and put your email address there so you can jump on that. And as I said, guarantee you'll learn something from that weekly share each and every time. Thank you, Tracy, very much for joining me here today. Thank you for sharing your story and your clients' stories as well. And it's just so important that we let more businesses know that there is a solution to their cash flow problems, and it doesn't always have to be such a huge struggle. So thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks, Katie.